Welcome to the ADNA Presents. Today, we're very happy to have Fern Lullham with us. She is a broadcaster. She works in audio description. I'm so excited to interview Fern. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Roy. I'm so excited to be on your podcast.
Here we go. Let's get started. What do you love about audio description, Fern?
Well, I love audio description because I just think it's such a great illustration of what I think accessibility and inclusion is all about, really. I'm registered blind myself and I was visually impaired all the way through my childhood. And I really found it hard when all of my friends were watching a film or watching the TV. You know, we'd have sleepovers and you go along and you're just sitting there and you completely feel excluded. You're not part of that. And even so much I internalized it to the point where I thought there must be something wrong with me because everyone else is enjoying this and I'm not. And now, of course, I can see years later, it's probably because you couldn't see and couldn't follow the story at all because I didn't have audio description back then. But now that I've discovered it, it has really leveled the playing field for me and made such a big difference to me as a blind person. But I think, Roy, it goes even deeper than that because my favorite thing about audio description is just the fact that I think it brings the sighted and the blind communities together and just shows that we can make a more diverse world when we work together. So with audio description, it's a really clear example of the sighted community stepping up to the plate. You know, you've got to kind of have a sighted person in order to write the script because then they can see what's happening on the screen. And then now we've got really amazing organizations that I've worked for who are now giving the opportunity for blind people to voice that audio description themselves. And in this way, it's just bringing those two parts together and showing that we can all work together. And I've always been a big believer that you shouldn't point the finger. You shouldn't say everything's bad and everything's terrible. Absolutely stand up if something is inaccessible, but also celebrate when something is really accessible, when it is working, when it is going well. And I've always wanted to do that. And I just think that's what audio description does. And I think it's really making a more diverse and equal world every day. And I really, really champion that. It's something that I'm really passionate about.
And that passion's coming through. I could hear you, and just even using the word celebration and connecting together, the leveling the playing field, as you exactly said. It sounds so exciting to hear about the opportunities. As audio description was created for blind people by blind people, it seems like as a sighted person, I see that there has been some exclusion, both as the consumers, as you had started off mentioning, the accessibility and inclusion when you were experiencing media, and now that there are more connections for blind people to be professionals and have those opportunities. We produced a audio description that was an entirely audio description team that was entirely blind, and the writer was also blind, and that was met with some resistance. And I'm curious about your experience about these steps that are being taken to include blind professionals. Have you found that there are some things that other companies can do, similar to what IDC and Motion Picture Solutions are doing, that would make things connect even better? I know that's such a rambling statement.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, I am a huge fan of the rambling statements because I do them all the time. But no, it absolutely makes sense. And I just think it's a great example of people and organizations that are leading the way into showing that blind people have talent as well. And that's the beautiful thing about it. You know, since I've had a taste of this, I've started doing audio description. I love it and I can't wait to get involved more. And all I want to do now is just do more and more audio description because it's something that, like I say, from both sides, I really, really get a lot out of. And like I say, again, it's just showing that not only is this something that sighted people are doing for blind people, it's something that blind people can be involved in. It's creating employment opportunities for blind people, which we know, that is a very big need in society. And like I say, it allows us to showcase the real talent that there is, not just that you're kind of doing a blind person a favor by saying you can do some audio description, but saying you're actually really good at this and you tell the story really well and you have a unique perspective because you probably rely on it and have used it a lot. And so let's work together on this and let's really innovate the industry and make it as good as it can be because you have that insight as somebody who has used it. What works, what doesn't? Let's talk about that and make it as good as it can possibly be.
And that focus of good seems like a new pivot that initially I remember even 5 years ago, the conversation was how cheap can we make audio description? And now clearly the competition amongst the different organizations that are creating audio description, it does seem to be pivoting towards that. How great can we make this? And we see a lot of examples of that. I'm curious about if we could go back to what you said about the employment, that audio description is literally modeling employment. Is there some experiences that you've had that you might be able to share with our audiences, if I may ask, about your background as far as a voicing side? You introduced yourself as a broadcaster. What are some things that have been beneficial so that when you did have that opportunity present itself, that you were ready for it?
Yeah, so like I say, I'm relatively new to audio description in itself, and I'm massively excited about that. But I have got a background in radio, in broadcasting, that's something that I've always wanted to do ever since I was tiny and I was
Uh,
interviewing my family around the table with an egg whisk for a microphone. Anything that came to hand, it was like, "So, Mum, what do you think about this glorious dinner that you've made? Are you proud of yourself?" It was literally that. And I'm old enough I still used to record on cassette tapes and things like that. And then as I got older, I started doing hospital radio, which is something we have in the UK, where basically hospitals will transmit their own station to patients on the wards, and they'll sort of play their favorite songs, things like that, just to try and jolly them along and feel a little bit better when you're in hospital. And so I started doing that when I was a teenager, kept doing that. And then I went to university and I studied in Western Carolina University, half the world away from where I live at home in the UK. And I was on an FM station there. And the more I did it, the more confident I became. And I just built up this real love of what I was doing and connecting with people through audio. And now I work for the BBC. I'm a freelance reporter for BBC Radio 4, and I do some work for the BBC World Service. And I also work for AMI Audio, which is a Canadian station. And I do a podcast for them called Into You, which is all about dating and relationships and the psychology behind it and why we do the things we do, which is just something that fascinates me. And I also I'm on one of their weekday shows as a contributor. It's called Kelly and Co. And this is actually how I first got into audio description, because one of their presenters, the co-presenters on that show, called Ramya Amuthan, she's actually blind herself. And I saw that she had done some audio description, and it really struck me as, wow, what a great opportunity and what an amazing thing that blind people can get involved in being the voice of audio description. And so I asked her, how did you get into this? And she was kind enough to share the contact with me. And that contact happened to be Eric Wickstrom of IDC. And that's how it all kind of came together. And it was just such a exciting thing. And like I say, it's all kind of come from this little seed, the little nugget that I had of just always being completely in love with audio and radio and broadcasting.
do you still have the egg whisk? Or do you have a sorry.
I could never get rid of the egg whisk.
I bet.
It's such a family heirloom. I think my parents would like me to get rid of the egg whisk to just shut me up. But no, it's still in the drawer, don't worry.
Oh, Fern, this is so exciting to hear your multitude experiences. Maybe we could talk about some differences and similarities between your experiences as a reporter or even doing a podcast and audio description. If you feel comfortable getting into some of the details, maybe there's some things that are very similar, some differences.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I am always a bit of a perfectionist, so I always have to be careful to not drive myself crazy with listening to it too much and going, "Oh, but does it sound all right?" And doing a million takes and all of that kind of thing, because I just can't help myself. I think as you go through, and I think it's certainly proven in my radio career, that the more you do it, the more confident you get, and you just say, "Look, that's enough. Just step away from the microphone. It's fine. Don't worry." And that was definitely something that I learned. And Eric was very, really supportive of just saying, "Look, if you think it's good, it's probably good. You don't need to worry about it too much." And just being able to create something through audio that's really going to be exciting and engaging to people to listen to. I remember when I was at university, I did a comedy drama show with one of my friends, and we did all kinds of funny things like acting out scenes and things like that, and just creating that audio experience for people. And obviously, as you can imagine, that's something that's really dear to my heart. I think that has sort of made me really think differently about audio description in how I tell the story, in how I do it, so that it's not intrusive and it's not sort of overbearing to what's going on screen, but at the same time it's not really mechanical. And I just want to bring that extra level to it. So I think that experience of having those kind of shows and the different things that have made me think creatively about audio have really built me into where I am today with how I do my audio description, how I can make it as good and as entertaining and as engaging as I possibly can.
Wow, what a great answer. Thank you for all of that. And to hear your focus on the story, that non-intrusive element, you had said earlier, does it sound right? That feels like the way that you're explaining that feels like a gauge that you have with what you are delivering, and that confidence in understanding, oh, I'm doing this the way that is going to make sure that the audience is excited. And you said excited and engaged, if I heard you correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Those words are so powerful when it comes to bringing those scripts that are so explicitly written well and so condensed between lines of dialogues, to be able to bring those to life in a way that the audience can, as you know, and as a consumer on this side, that that when audio description is great, it just it's that immersive experience. And to be able to perform that maybe in the same way that you do your comedy and drama shows, but just in a different level, that's got to be very exciting for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And like I say, because it's something that's so near to my heart anyway, it's just inherently exciting. But then, yes, to think about how can you do it and how can you make it the most engaging to people. But also, I think the other thing, as a blind person who uses audio description, is I'm always very aware of other people listening to it that maybe don't rely on it. So, if I have to have audio description on, that means my partner has to listen to it, or anyone who's watching with me has to listen to it. And so it's really good to think about, and because I've always sort of felt like, God, this must be so annoying. They must just want to turn it off. And so to be able to create an experience that is good for everyone, whether you're relying on it or not, I just think that's something that I've learned as well. And I'm just so grateful to, like I say, to the people who have given me these opportunities. And I am still learning. I am still sort of growing my confidence in this area, because it is new, uncharted territory for me to a certain degree, and learning how audio description specifically works. But I'm just so grateful that Eric and Sonia from Motion Picture Solutions for giving me this opportunity to show that I can not only read the script, but also do it justice and do it in a way that is going to be compelling to the audience to listen and enjoy, whether they're sighted or whether they're blind.
Well, and to have that come back to beginning of the conversation with the accessibility and inclusion factor, that here we go again. It's yet another example of you being able to bring the best work through all the work that you do, all the experiences that you've had, and to be able to have a platform for it. It's just great. When you look at the opportunities that you've had that have worked incredibly well, are there some other things that you haven't mentioned yet in this interview that you'd love for our audiences to know? And our audiences are not only people who use audio description, but also blind people who are professionals who are interested in making sure that they have the opportunities as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do definitely think that, as I said earlier, one of the biggest things is working together on this and not seeing the sighted community or just anybody as an enemy. I think this is something where people just need to be educated on it, and you'd have no reason to really know about it unless you have been in that position. And so that's something that I'm always trying to do, and I'm always trying to show that either if you're blind, if you're sighted, there's so many things that we can connect on, right? So we talk about, different things that I've done. And one of the things that I've done, I mentioned my podcast where I talk about relationships and dating and whatnot. And I did a few years ago in 2019, I did a TEDx talk called What Online Dating Looks Like When You're Blind. And because it's something that I've had to go through, such a major experience in my life of having to tell people over an app hey, I can't see, and thinking, oh my God, it's going to be a complete turn off. Nobody's going to want to meet me, and I'm going to be the most undesirable person in the room. And actually, when I think about that, I realize that that is relatable, not on the level of disability, perhaps, but relatable in some way to everyone, right? Everyone
Mm.
sort of thinks there's something about them that is going to be the strike, the thing that just is the thing that nobody wants them for. And when I think about that, I think that's true in so many areas of life. And when it comes to audio description, I just think whoever you are, whether you've had to use this or not, you realize that of course you would want to be included. Of course, when your friends or your family get together, you would want to be a part of that. And so I guess what I would encourage other blind listeners to do is just to explain that to people in a way that comes from an empathetic, understanding place, to as much as we want other people to understand us and our needs and the need for accessibility, that we need to understand that maybe they just don't get it. Maybe they've never been in that position, and we just need to explain it on an emotional level that other people will understand, because 9 times out of 10, when you do explain it on that level, people go, of course, that makes absolute sense, and they want to work with you to make things better. And I honestly think that is the way forward, rather than, like I say, I'm not, in no way am I saying don't stand up for and speak out for things when they're not accessible, but it's the way we do that. It's how we go about it. And I think if we can make people understand in a good way that benefits everyone, and we can all work together on it, that is how you're going to get a more inclusive, diverse world. And that is how we're going to get more audio description, which is something we're all dying for.
All right. Yes. Thank you for that answer. If you were to look at audio description now from a professional perspective, where would you love to see it headed? You've already addressed so many great things about bringing more audio description and bringing better audio description and bringing more inclusion. I think those things are so clearly coming across in your interview. Is there anything else that you haven't mentioned that you'd love to see audio description headed?
First thing that springs to mind is, like I say, just more of it. I know in the UK for TV, whether it's on demand or whether it's live TV, our legal requirement is 10% of shows should be audio described. And when you think about that, that's one program in every 10. And that's just such a low number when you rely on it, when that is the thing that allows you to watch TV or not, or to fully enjoy it, I should say. It makes a huge difference. And there are stations, of course, that do exceed that, but none of them are anywhere near 100%. And there are so many programs that I would love to watch that I just can't fully enjoy because they don't have audio description. It is such a disappointment when I go, oh, I'm going to watch that, and check to see if they've got AD, and there's no AD, and it's heartbreaking. It really is. It's such a disappointment. And I don't think it's a cost thing, because I think it would be a tiny part of a TV's station's budget to do that. There needs to be more of it, but I don't think that should be at the extent of or the cost of the quality of the audio description, because I think it would be a shame if the quality went down because they're just trying to churn it out. But also, I think the technology, of course, is always developing in this area. I think it would be a shame if AI just took over all the voicing of audio description, because I just don't think there's that human element of emotion. Like I said earlier, the storytelling side of it, I don't think you can quite do that the same with AI. But I do think in other ways the technology could help. So I actually recently did a report about 3D sound in audio description and how that's changing the playing field, because you can now put sound effects in and 3D sound effects, so they kind of follow where it sounds like where it's coming from, or kind of like having surround sound, right? But just through headphones. And that can really fill in a lot of gaps of visual. So if you imagine, something, so I did the audio description for Puppet Master and things like true crime. If you imagine the sound of somebody walking across floorboards, getting closer to their victim and things like that, it builds a picture in your mind, just that sound. And I think if we can utilize things like that, that might really change the game for audio description. And like I say, just build that picture up in your mind of what's on the screen. So I think, technology inevitably has a part of AD's future and where it's going. I just think we need to be careful and cautious about how we use it, and when we use it, and making the best of it, and so that it doesn't take away from what we already have, and it only makes things better.
Beautiful. And that all or nothing thing, I've said a handful of times, I've got no interest in reading Twitter or people's emails or calendar appointments. But I think that in your example, you really did clarify that, this non-intrusive, non-mechanical contribution that you voice, and these technological developments of 3D binaural audio, I think is another term for it. So it's like being able to experience that. It's that wow factor and that immersion even deeper, and it's just bubbling everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I think to say is that audio description isn't just for TV and cinema. I did another report a while ago that was on art, and how people are using audio description now to describe art. So you go to an art gallery and you can literally listen to a description of what is on the wall, or what the artwork is. And in theatre, there needs to be more audio description in theatre. There's such a low amount of it, and it makes such a huge difference. If I go to a theatre show and they don't have audio description, I'm missing such a huge chunk of what is going on stage. And just to have that in place, it completely changes the experience for me. So I just think audio description doesn't just stop at TV and cinema. It has boundaries around that, and it can make more and more activities more inclusive to people who otherwise just wouldn't be able to enjoy them or participate in the same way.
That's just great, Fern. Thank you for saying that. Is there anything else that you'd love to share with our audience that you haven't mentioned yet?
I think it's all just so positive where audio description is going, and I'm so excited to be a part of it and to be able to do the thing that I love. And, there have been challenges along the way. Looking for opportunities in broadcasting has been something that I have found difficult, where anyone who's a freelancer will know that you can work really hard and you can approach so many people and say, hey, I can do this really good thing. I've built up years of talent, and just get nothing back. And that can be soul destroying. And so I'm so grateful to people who are open-minded and who are giving people opportunities, and just opening up that door to new possibilities, especially, like I say, for blind and visually impaired and other disabled people, because there is so much talent that just needs to be out there and to be seen. And if we can do that, I think there's no end to the possibilities. And I have so much hope for the future of diversity and inclusion. And I think audio description is just such a good example of that. And I'm so excited to be a part of it.
Oh, big smiles on this side. Thank you for that. You've already mentioned your podcast. Could you also share places that people could follow you, social media, websites, the podcast? You said it was Into You. Is there any platforms that we could listen to it?
Yeah, so it's pretty much on all of your favorite podcatchers. It's Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get podcasts, basically. You can type in Into You, Fern Lullham, and it should come up. I am on most of, if not all, the social medias, and my handle is @Miss Fern Lullham. And come and find me and have a chat. Check out my TEDx talk. It's called What Online Dating Looks Like When You're Blind. It would be lovely to have you along.
Thank you so much, Fern. This is great.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Hi there. Hope you enjoyed this episode with Fern. We're very excited to have the ADNA Presents Volume 1 available now on Kindle. Enjoy.